You think you know what we're going to talk about.
But unfortunately, I fell down a damn rabbit hole and I've not gotten out yet.
Knife bros.
I literally Googled Sebastian Stan hands.
But just when you least expect it, we changed the game.
Well, yeah, because like usually in astrology, they would partner up air signs with fire signs.
All right, you can huggle.
Time travel stories and
At the end of the day, only one thing matters. We decide.
Well, we should make it a topic. Unfortunately, I didn't take German in school. I took Spanish and I don't remember any of it.
Three Fates Decide podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Three Fates Decide. I am your host, Liz, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Sam and Mary. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so coming up on February 1st is going to be another new year that we're going to be celebrating. It is the Chinese New Year, or also known as the Lunar New Year. To be more inclusive of the many other countries and cultures that also celebrate this holiday as well, not just people who are of Chinese descent. So I guess before we get started, I'm going to post this really quick disclaimer. We did do some research, but this is not like an all-encompassing episode where we talk about every single aspect of this holiday. And also, I'm limiting my own knowledge of the holiday to my own personal experiences because, as I'm sure some of you are undoubtedly aware, there are over 1 billion Chinese people in the world, and that's just within the actual borders of China. There's also millions of overseas people, and like I said earlier, there are people who are not Chinese but are from other Asian countries that also celebrate this holiday. So there are variations of some very common, cultural aspects of the holiday that we all celebrate, but there's like slight tweaks depending on the locality. So I will talk about what my family eats and does for the holiday, but we'll throw in like a few other interesting variations, like I said. Okay, so one important thing to mention is that this particular year will be the year of the tiger. So if anybody is familiar with Western astrology, you know that there are signs that happen over the course of a year where there's 12 signs representing each of the months. For this particular astrological calendar we're going to mention here, it's not per month, it's by year. So you have a year of the tiger this coming year, just like the previous year was the year of the ox, and the year before that was the rat, etc. So there's 12 different animals representing 12 years. And just to add a little complication, as it were, there's also elements. So you have the classic elements of earth, wind, fire, water, and you also have a fifth element of metal. So now you actually technically will have a 60-year cycle. I guess I guess I'll start with what are you two familiar with in terms of this holiday, Mary and Sam?
I know for me, obviously very minimal interaction. My biggest thing was I knew about like the different animals that each year represents. So like I knew that I was born the year of the rabbit. And the element thing actually really intrigued me, and I really want to know what element I am based on the new year. So I'm actually looking that up right now because what I was on did not show me. So, ooh, I'm fire.
Mm.
No wonder I'm so feisty. But yeah, no. So I know that it's, a lot, several days, a lot of celebrations and things like that. I know when I worked up in New York, I worked for, a parking company and we had parking lots all over the place, including Flushing, Queens, and they have this huge celebration for the Chinese New Year with parades and all that stuff. So that's about the extent of mine. I just know it's several days. It's just a huge celebration, a lot of colors, and you know, very fun stuff. I've always wanted to go see like some of the celebrations, but unfortunately, while I was there, COVID kind of happened, and so it didn't really. It was starting, I should say.
Yeah.
So didn't really get a chance to go and admire, but yeah, that's pretty much for me. That's the extent of what I know.
Okay.
Yeah. I think for me is I knew I also knew it was several days long. And it was a very big celebration for Asian people um the world over, really.
Right.
I did know that the main color that's used is usually red, or I should say colors is usually red and gold, correct?
Yep.
And I know there's something called red envelopes. I'm not real sure what they are. I just know I'd read something years ago about red envelopes.
Yes, that is a thing.
Um, and there's a lot of food and a lot of good food.
Yes, there is, and that is why my diet is going to be messed up pretty soon.
And Sam, you said that you were. I also knew about the Chinese zodiacs being the 12 animals for one for each year, and as it turns out, I was born in the year of the dog. But this is a very strange coincidence in my family. There's 4 people in my immediate family. It's myself, my daughter, my mom, and my dad. Now, myself and my mother are both born in the year of the dog. And my daughter and my father were both born in the year of the rooster, which
Yeah, that
is very, very strange to me. Now, I'm kind of curious as to what elements, because I didn't know anything about the elements, to see what if we share the same elements like we do animals.
So for you, dog year would have been a water dog. Um, I think. Yeah, a water dog. Um, I
Which is
think
strange because Aquariuses are known as the water bearer.
yeah, that is a funny coincidence. Um, and I think your mom might be a fire dog.
Huh.
I mean, based off of the year, I think you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
before we start recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. She is a fire dog.
Yeah, and for rooster, your daughter would be a fire rooster, and I think your dad would have been a wood rooster.
oh, so close.
I know. Man.
If he had come up with water, I quit. That's just creepy.
That would have been so strange. Oh my god.
Like I would just be stunned to silence for the rest of this episode because like, the chances of that.
I know, right?
Well, it means every 60 years you go through the cycle, including the different elements. So, there would be a pretty good age gap there happening if you happen to have the exact same combination. But and since we're all mentioning our signs here, I happen to be born in the year of the pig, and I happen to be a water pig, along with some other celebrities that we are familiar with, who happen to be born in the same year as me. Okay, so yeah, you guys mentioned like a few basics, which I guess like that's one starting point I could go on, because I mean, there's different directions we could go off here. So one thing that Sam brought up is the fact that, yes, it is actually a holiday where technically it's 15 days long. Whether or not your family will actually celebrate the entire 15 days kind of varies based off of different factors like just your family tradition, even including things like whether you're a Buddhist family or you're not. There's also some regionality things again. But basically during the first 15 days of this particular new year is the time when basically people visit you at your house or you go to their house to visit them. It's basically a lot of visiting and feasting as well. And technically there are different events happening each day. I don't happen to be part of a Buddhist family, but I am aware that like one of the 15 days is actually called Buddha's birthday. So, yeah, so people who are Buddhist, they will particularly celebrate that day. But like I said, for my family, we're not Buddhist, so it's just like it's just like another day in the holiday where in years past we would, either be visiting somebody else or somebody would be visiting us. And as Mary also mentioned, there are red envelopes, and red and gold are important colors. So I guess like the red thing, the best way to explain it would be it's kind of like how for the Irish, green is considered a very lucky color.
Mm-hmm.
So in Chinese culture in particular, red is considered the lucky color. It's meant to there's like a whole mythical story about like why it's red, but basically it's because supposedly red is a way to ward off evil spirits and misfortune, which is why red is a huge thing in like pretty much every major event and holiday in Chinese culture. So it's not just in the New Year, but it's also at weddings. Like instead of wearing a white wedding gown, the bride will wear a red gown usually. And the red envelope thing in general, basically that is where you receive money from people during the new year. There are specific rules about this. So basically it's people who are married couples will be the ones giving out the envelopes, and also normally the elder people giving it to younger people. So if you happen to be younger than a bunch of people and you also happen to be not married, you are more likely to be receiving the envelopes, but you are not expected to give the envelopes to other people. Which gets really funny because in my generation, this happens to be a funny thing in my family. In my generation of the family, I happen to be the youngest cousin, sibling, as it were, and also I am very much not married. So every year I keep getting envelopes from people. Even my cousin, who is literally just 2 months older than me, she is married, and she and her husband, they have to give me envelopes, which is funny to me. It's pretty obvious why gold is always a very good color and very important color, but yeah, prosperity, fortune, etc. The food thing. Yes, there's a lot of food. I'm reminded actually back when we were doing the New Year's Eve episode that Mary had mentioned long noodles being a thing for New Year's, and actually it is a thing for both Chinese New Year and also for our birthdays, where long noodles represent long lives, which is why it's very important to eat long noodles for both occasions. Another one is actually you will see lots of oranges and even like tangerines being sold during the weeks leading up to the new year, because you think about like what color are oranges? They're like this orangey golden color. Well, if you give these oranges to other people as gifts, during the visits, you're basically wishing people good fortune in the new year. There's quite a few other items that are like this. There are certain types of dumplings that will be in the shape of gold ingots, which used to be the currency in ancient China. So again, eating these particular dumplings in this shape is again wishing somebody will have good fortune and good luck, more money this coming year. And I guess like another one I'll mention is fish. Basically fish, this is an example of a word pun. So the way the word fish is pronounced in Chinese, you pronounce the word one way, it means fish, but then there's another word that's a similar pronunciation that also means to have plenty, to have surplus, which is again another wish that you will have a lot of stuff, coming your way. You will never go without in the coming new year. There's other foods items that have like similar meanings to them. Like it's a like I said earlier, it's a food pun. It's a word pun kind of thing. There's many other examples that I'm not going to get into all of them because it's like a long list here. Uh, yeah, and like I said in the beginning, some of these things are also regional because there's different parts of China where you eat certain things that maybe another part of China doesn't eat. Like one little anecdote I'll share. This was quite a few years ago when I was in college, but I had this classmate in some of my classes where she was actually originally from Shanghai. And it happened to be spring semester, and obviously we're talking about, the upcoming new year and stuff. So we wound up in this group conversation with some other classmates, and we were talking about the new year, and I mentioned my family, we live in the southern part of China, like we live in Hong Kong and Guangzhou province, which is like right across the harbor from where Hong Kong is. So one of the things we eat is it's this type of turnip cake, I guess is like the best English name translation for it. It's basically like this paste that's made up of this dough with chopped up pieces of like turnip in it, and we typically will take this paste and then we like pan fry it, and that's a common thing we eat for the new year. Meanwhile, this classmate of mine who's from Shanghai, she has no idea what I'm talking about. They don't eat that where she's from. So, so there are certain common things that we have like that we'll eat like throughout, most of China, I guess you could say, but then there's like I said, the regional things where like one part will eat these things and then the other part will be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like if you guys have any other questions or any other interesting things maybe you guys looked up in preparation for this episode.
I mean, I found some things about aspects for the year of the tiger. So like some of the so like obviously like each year has its own, kind of similar to the our other like zodiacs and stuff like that. You have certain things that are lucky, unlucky, certain other zodiacs that you're compatible with or not compatible with, your horoscope, all that stuff. So I'm just going to go through a little bit about what's going on with the tiger. So some of the things that are lucky for the tiger are blue and green, which I love because blue is my favorite color. But anyway, lucky numbers are 1, 3, and 7. Lucky flowers are plum blossom. Lucky direction is north, which that's interesting that there's a lucky direction. Unlucky things. Unlucky color is white, and unlucky numbers is 4 and 9. Some of their strengths, they're courageous and authoritative. They can be cute and charming. They're adventurers. They're really hard workers. They speak forthright and boldly. Oh boy. They're very honest. But apparently they're very chivalrous, so like they're not like mean about it. They're just very outspoken. They have a strong sense of responsibility and will always keep their word and uphold their obligations. So bravo, tigers. Weakness is that they can be very rebellious and they're almost too self-confident and want to coordinate or communicate with others, and sometimes they get very lonely because they're just so out there. People kind of stay away from them. They can be dictators based on their strengths. I don't deny that. They can be stubborn and brash.
Gee.
Boy, tiger men are talented and ambitious. Unlikely to stay in work environment that does not allow them to develop freely for long. Interesting.
Huh.
If they are in love with a woman, they will work earnestly to win her affection before settling down to a serious commitment with her. Once that happens, they will remain loyal to their partner. Extramarital affairs are almost impossible for these majestic and diligent men.
Okay, so
Majestic.
basically you're telling me that I need to find myself a tiger man.
You need to find a tiger. Yep.
Okay.
Female tigers are intelligent and strong to the point of domineering. Some they may appear entirely unfeminine. In the workplace, they can appear brash, but in reality, they possess positive traits that spell success at both work and at home. It is believed that some tiger women are arrogant and temperamental, therefore, are unlikely to find satisfaction in home and family life. Um, which the statement is not unreasonable, but more because ancient cultures like China's tended to believe a woman's place was in the home. In modern day, that's no longer true. And anyone can handle their dominant first impression. Anyone who can handle their dominant first impression will find a dedicated and strong woman underneath their tough exterior. I was gonna say, like, this seems a little, but obviously it goes based off of traditions a long, 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 long time ago. So
Yes.
Yeah.
we'll forgive.
We will
Yeah.
forgive them for their long-standing tradition.
Well, yes. I mean, yeah, I won't get into it, but there are certain things that I know were fairly common back in the old days that I certainly do not approve of. Despite that, it's part of my cultural heritage, but it is what it
Not just
is.
yours, unfortunately, it's everywhere.
No, I know, but it in like in this context, it's like it is what it is. I mean, you can't take a time machine and go back and change how it was. But
Right, exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. I'm glad it
um,
mentioned it went based off of culture back then, and now it's more accepted, and things like, because as I was reading it, I was like, well, this sounds terrible. These poor women, tiger women, get no love. They do. You get love if you're if you were born in the year of the tiger. You'll find love. I promise.
yeah. I mean, if anything, the men better be on the out here. You know, yeah. Um, I guess like I guess since we're talking about the tiger year, I mean, um, I guess this is the part where like I'll talk about like some of the non-foodie other things that will happen. So, a very common sight you will see at a lot of these celebrations. Again, it kind of varies by local rules here, is the use of fireworks. Yeah, I mean, for us in New York City, there are very you are required to get permits to light fireworks, but even like 20 odd years ago, you go to Chinatown or even Flushing, you will hear lots of fireworks going off like everywhere. And I'm not talking about things like the Macy's 4th of July parade type of fireworks, like those giant, things, but some of the ones that get used in Chinese New Year festivals would be more along the lines of firecrackers. So they're like, the smaller
The
explosions you
bottle
get.
rockets.
Um, Sometimes you'll get those, but there really are like, those smaller firecrackers that like go pow 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 pow
Gotcha.
versus boom, kind of things.
Oh, Roman
Um,
candles.
hmm?
Roman candles are the ones that kind of go pow 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 pow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Kinda.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not like super familiar with like fireworks and firecrackers, so like I don't know like all the different, but yeah. Um, but the ones like I'm certainly more familiar with are like firecrackers. Like they do make like small explosion sounds, but it's like pow 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 kind of noises. Which for somebody with my sensitive hearing was a nightmare. Especially as a kid. So yeah, those will typically be used during the New Year celebrations, and actually they do get used in other festivals. Like sometimes you'll get them at weddings. If like a new business is opening, you use the firecrackers as well. And the reason for that is because again, there was a myth involved. So there's a myth that says that there is a monster that appears every year. And one of the ways to scare off the monster was to use these firecrackers to frighten it away. And the monster represents misfortune and, ill will and whatnot, and, bad luck and everything. So use the firecrackers to scare away the misfortune and bring the good luck to you. So again, this is a running theme here. Good luck, fortune, prosperity, etc. And another thing, you will also see people hanging up scrolls with all sorts of writing on them. There's different messages that could be written, but again, it's all like hoping that the people who live in this house or the people that enter this business will have all sorts of good things coming their way. And I'm trying to think what else is another common thing. This is more like a relatively modern thing, but like Sam actually mentioned earlier, she was aware that there are parades that happen. Yeah, parades will happen. It is like I was saying, it's a relatively minor, modern thing that started happening in the last like 100 odd years. Because typically, the way the New Year is celebrated is that it's very family and friend oriented. Like I mentioned earlier, people are visiting you and you're visiting other people. So, so it's like more of like a family oriented, personal, like more internal type of holiday to a certain degree versus like a huge giant extravaganza that, everybody is doing together at the same time, like, the way you would do like, other holidays, like, as another example, like, 4th of July events, with like the big parades and everything. But as more people left China to other countries, for economic reasons, the concept of a parade, started becoming like, an interesting idea. And it's also important for, again, for the people that left, China, as a way to like kind of gather together and celebrate your heritage with other people from your own country. The best way to, share and pass on, all this cultural heritage is to get together and do a public event like a parade. I mean, that's how a lot of these parades in the US at least got started. It's because you have people who live in, small Chinatowns where you only have, a few hundred, maybe a couple thousand people in this one neighborhood decide to get together and celebrate, the same heritage that they all have and do that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could mention.
I don't know
if
if
you.
we've mentioned what day it starts for this year, but in case anyone wants to know, it's February 1st. I don't think we mentioned that.
Oh yeah. This year happens to be February 1st this year. Yeah, actually, that is one thing to mention. It does shift every year. It's not like, the New Year that everybody is familiar with, where it starts on January 1st every year. One of the alternate names for this holiday I mentioned is the Lunar New Year because it is using a slightly different calendar. So instead of the Gregorian 365 calendar, which is like a solar based calendar. As the name suggests, we are using, I mean, to a degree, it does involve the sun as well, but, the moon is a very significant determinant of, what the dates are in the calendar. So that's why, like, not just with the New Year, but also other Chinese holidays, if you were to look up those various holidays, you will notice that some of them are in some relation to the phases of the moon, whether full moon or what have you. Yeah. So that's why this year happens to be February 1st, but the next year, which will be the rabbit year, is going to be January 22nd. The New Year usually falls either late January or early to mid-February. It's more often in February, but you will occasionally get a late January date. I guess like the last bit to on my end that I could mention is how my family celebrates. So what we typically do is we do have a I guess you could call it like a New Year's Eve type of dinner. What my family does is that my parents would host a dinner the actual eve before the actual, the first day of the new year. And my relatives would go to our house and have a dinner together where we eat all the various dishes that, like I mentioned in the earlier part of the episode, like, include, all sorts of food that's supposed to be good luck and everything. And then after the dinner's over, that's when we have people passing out the envelopes to all the younger folks and all the kids. Let me tell you, it would, during a pre-pandemic year, it would not be shocking for me to end up getting almost like $100 worth of money from all the different people I got red envelopes from. By the time that this 2-week period of the new year's over. And also one special thing we do is actually we'll usually call my uncle who lives in Hong Kong and wish him and my aunt a happy new year as well, because we only would we don't get to see him very often, so that's always special. And sometimes we'll also call my aunt, who happens to be a nun, a Catholic nun, just to be more specific. She lives in a convent. It's a cloistered order, so she basically never leaves the convent except for a few circumstances. So sometimes we'll also call her as well. Happy New Year. And then on the first day of the new year, we typically will visit one of my aunts who usually she and her family don't come to the Eve dinner, but instead of her coming to us, we go visit her the next day. And that kind of starts the whole thing of like visiting other people and then them visiting you kind of thing that I mentioned. And that's pretty much it. I mean, we don't do like the extra special events on the other um on the other days of the 2 weeks. We just visit each other, give each other the oranges. Sometimes we'll include sweets, like whether it's cookies or candy. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I've covered everything I have to cover on my end. Anything else you guys want to add in?
I'm like obsessed with the Zodiacs, so
It is pretty interesting.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
like I'm looking at mine. Like as I mentioned, I'm the year of the rabbit. I'm most compatible with the dog, the pig, and the goat, and I'm least compatible with the rooster, the dragon, and the rat. Guess the other ones don't matter.
I mean, I guess it just means that like you're like okay with them, but you're not bad or good with
Is happy with one of my compatibles though, saying.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Gee.
I mean,
wonder why.
Yeah, I mean, my own knowledge of like the zodiac is pretty limited, so I can't really get into it other than like I know the animals and the basic cycle, but I
I
can't.
mean, I can give you guys your horoscopes if you want, based off of
If you,
this
yeah, if you
lovely
want.
website that I have.
Okay,
Sure.
sure.
Who wants to go first?
Um, you could do Mary.
Okay.
Yeah, go
Dog.
ahead and do me. You're the
Dog.
dog. I'm
You're
a
the dog.
dog.
All
I'm a
right.
dog.
So, all right. In the year of 2022, dogs will turn their luck around from the previous year's hardships and begin to get rid of the obstacles that have been standing in their way.
Ooh.
I'm loving this right now. This is a special year for dog natives with gifts of fortune from Tai Su and many opportunities across each area of their lives. Their career development will be more inspired than previous years, with a marked increase in efficiency, which add up to dogs being excellently placed for promotions and raises at work. Love will be less stellar, although dogs may find themselves having too much fun to pursue a committed relationship in 2022. It's all right to enjoy the single lifestyle for a while, especially after the 2020 and 2021 the whole world had experienced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I agree with that statement.
Yes. I think I agree with that too, for especially a certain someone.
But Mary, hey, your career is going to get better.
Yay!
Yeah,
All
that's
right,
good.
go to the peak.
Okay.
Here we go. Pigs will be blessed in 2022, but unfortunately, other aspects may cause a bit of trouble despite this.
Oh
As
no.
such, pigs can look forward to an abundance of good luck this year, which may be punctuated by periods of instability and changeable fortune. Way to
Oh
deal with
no.
this is to prepare for everything and never be in a hurry. Pressure like that never sits well with pigs. Take an optimistic approach as you usually do toward life. Plenty of backup options for the things that are important to you, and everything will likely work out in your favor.
I see.
In terms of love and relationships, many may find themselves trapped in unsatisfying romantic situations, so don't do that.
Ugh.
I
Well, at least like
that's a
okay,
problem.
to be fair, I'm currently not seeing anybody, so I
You
am
don't have to
spared
worry
of that
about
at
that.
least.
All right, and then mine. Rabbits will have mixed fortune in 2022. Oh boy. Although their luck will fluctuate a great deal, In particular, rabbits are likely to enjoy a flourishing year in their career and wealth, professional opportunities and breakthroughs, and rapid increases to their savings and investments. Their love life is going to suffer external interference all year long. Emotional entanglements will likely, in unlikely quarters, may even lead to a breakup or divorce. In addition, they may also be prone to accidents and disasters. So caution will be a must for rabbits as they go through 2022. I'm just going to go pop myself into a bubble.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
Like,
seriously.
like, why did I have the worst one? Jesus.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Prone
Well,
to
hopefully,
accidents, and it's not even just like accidents, disasters. That's the word that scares me here.
oh dear.
I might, go through a divorce even though I'm not married. But no love
Yeah.
for me. All right, so really the three of us are loveless this year. So hey, we'll be loveless together.
Well, I mean, I've pretty much been loveless since 2017, so good.
And it's been a while for me too. So I'm with you.
Yep, yep. I guess like the one last thing I'll mention that I didn't mention earlier before it was out, because like I said in the beginning of the episode, there are many different directions we could go into discussing this holiday and all the cultural aspects and everything, but we're not here to make this into a 2-hour episode, and so one last interesting thing I will mention is that, okay, pre-pandemic, but actually the days leading up to the new year actually is considered one of the largest human migration events every year, because you have millions and millions of Chinese people traveling throughout the country, and even people from overseas flying back to China to go celebrate the holiday with their family, because as I've said a few times already, this is very much a holiday about your family. So tradition says that you must go back home to to your ancestral village or whatever. And you get together with all your relatives to celebrate the holiday together. So it's pretty similar to like how people will go back home, for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever, what have you, depending on what your family's customs happen to be. But this is a thing where you are literally talking about millions and millions of people taking trains and planes and clogging up the highways, trying to go back home and do the holiday with your family. And it's also oftentimes, for that reason, one of the few times of the year where as many people as possible will gather together and meet each other, because in modern society, you know especially for younger people, you go out in the world and you get a job, and if it means you have to leave, whatever city you originally came from to go, make money and, earn your own little fortunes, you leave. And, because of the nature of your job and your new lifestyle, you may rarely go back home. So New Year's becomes a very significant thing, where it is the one time of the year where you are more or less required by tradition and culture to go back home and see your family. I always thought it was an interesting fact, like, that it, how chaotic it gets in, like, those, like, the week or so before the new year starts, like how ridiculously busy the travel is. I mean, I've heard, airplane tickets heading to Hong Kong and China skyrocket a lot, because you have a huge demand of all these overseas Chinese people going back. So that was also why, by funny coincidence, Shang-Chi, which happens to be an episode we will be doing very soon, originally, again, before the pandemic, Shang-Chi was originally planned to be released in China during the New Year holiday back in 2020, but we obviously know that didn't happen. And in hindsight, I am very happy that that did not happen, because that would have been a huge disaster for Disney if they did that. A huge disaster, because again, this is meant to be a holiday where you are visiting people, and particularly your family. So unlike July 4th and Christmas and what have you, very few people are interested in watching movies during this 2-week period. And even the people who actually even bother going to the movies to watch movies, they are more likely to be watching domestically made Chinese movies versus a foreign Hollywood movie. So it was just as well that it wasn't able to open back at the time. But then again, for anybody who's aware of this fact, China didn't allow Shang-Chi to be screened in China anyway. So it's ultimately a moot point, but yeah. Okay, so before we close out, as usual, we have an email address where you can send us questions, comments, criticisms on how to improve our show. You can email us at threefatesdecide@gmail.com. It's the title of our podcast, all in one word, and the 3 is spelt out.
And you can also reach us on Instagram at Three Fates Decide. The 3 is spelled out. And feel free to send us DMs.
Let us know what you think. We love feedback.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Catch us next time.
And see what we're going to talk about.
Because the 3 Fates decide.